Hey, I'm John. Welcome back to Mr. G's Workbench and episode 2 of the SH-60F Ocean Hawk build review in 1/35 scale. If you recall, last time we got together, we assembled the cabin and cockpit. We installed it into the fuselage halves, and we left it at that. I had some sanding and filling to do. 4 coats of filling and sanding later. I am terrible at filling and sanding. It's my biggest weakness in model building. So, that being said, I owe everybody an apology for episode 1 was not up to the standards I do try to hold myself to, believe it or not. I had started doing the build review about 3 months ago and set it aside to get some other stuff done. I came back to it. I kind of rushed to get the video done and to publish it, and it was lacking. I wasn't happy with it, but so many people had watched it at that point. Usually I put music during the build sequences that I accelerate, and I tell you what paints I used at various stages, and I didn't do that. So for that I apologize. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to episode 1 in the detail section of the video. I'm going to try to list all the paints I used in the cockpit and cabin assembly to kind of make up for it. So that being said, again, I thank you all for your support, for subscribing to the channel, and let's go and jump into episode 2 and complete the construction of the Ocean Hawk. All right, let's take a look. So this is kind of up through step 30. I'll give you a quick 2 cents on what's been going on. The first thing you add to the top of the completed fuselage are the engines. Now the engines are built up in step 23, with the exception that this engine you have to reverse F59 and F60, which are these little support arms. because the instructions only show you them assembling it the same way twice. That's not the case. I was putting this engine in, couldn't figure out why isn't it going in properly. It was because these support arms are reversed. Each one is bigger than the other, and the longer ones are on the outside of each engine. So the engine you build with HD25 here as your exhaust or whatever that is, that one has the longer arm on this side. The thing I did before I installed the engines is you put in this firewall back here along with the two sides for the engine bays. I would suggest installing those first into the top of the fuselage, because that's the only way everything else fits right. So you get that in, then you can install the engines with these front pieces. Everything will sit down in place because these front pieces are keyed on the leading edge of the engine bay. So you get the engines in along with these walls. The next thing you got to do is put this in, this back section here. These exhausts are built in steps 25 and 26. My plan originally was I built these two exhausts on either side in 25 and 26. I attached them to this top piece as the instructions would have you do in step 28. The way the instructions have it, you would install these exhausts onto the backs of the engines, then put this on. That doesn't work. There's two pegs, one on the top of each of these exhausts. Install the exhausts in the top. The pegs go into slots in the roof here. Do that, and then I highly advise you to put these parts in as well, HC 20 and 21. Install those, make this into one big assembly, and then fit it in here. It's kind of slides in forward and then pushes down. I put these in after I had already glued this in, and it was really tough. I split these open. After all the seam work I did to get these nice and smooth, they split open when I was trying to shove this part up underneath. So build this up as a sub-assembly, and then put it in place after that. It should kind of snap right in. So I got that in. The next thing I got in was you have to put this, I don't know what this is called, the top of the engine, the top of the base of the rotor, let's call it that. That gets installed into the two pegs sticking up out of the roof of the airframe. You install that, then you do this section here, right? That'll fit in. There's slots actually, and this whole thing snaps down into here, and there's two pegs on each side here. And you can see where I kind of had issues, but not so much, not as bad as I thought. There's two pegs on each side. They go into holes in the top of the airframe. So this whole thing goes in. Then I did the windscreen. You have to also, this piece is separate. So they would have you put this in later, but at the same time I did this, I masked this off and I installed it as well. Everything fit really well when I did that, and it seems to be sitting pretty well. And looking from the sides, it looks right. So I'm happy with that. That went in. Then I put this in because I'm just trying to get everything even. This didn't sit completely well. I had to kind of go in with a sanding stick and sand on the insides of this cowl. But eventually it sat down. It's pretty even on the sides here. I'm going to go back with probably just a little white putty just to clean up any gaps. Then I did this. I got this in. It went in pretty well. Because my sono buoy launcher in there isn't sitting perfectly square, I had to do a little sanding on the inside of this piece, and then it went in. And you can see here I have a little cleanup work to do right here, but overall it fit well. My plan is to leave this engine open and exposed, so I might do a little detail work there. I've already test fitted this cover on. This one fits well. Just got to apply a little pressure when you install it and it'll sit right. and I have to just do the intakes. So far so good. Let's keep going. So here we are. I've attached these intakes. You can see the one over here. This one went in, no fuss, no drama. It's lined up pretty well. I hit it with the that black Mr. Cement SP. You can see here I've got some seam work to do to get that closed up. Pretty sure I'm good on the seams and the exhaust. So that's that side. But the problems came on this side, which you can see is still, this intake is still taped in place. I can't begin to tell you how much material I've removed from the inside of this area here, the forward support for the engine bay. I would have been way better off had I just put in the bare engine, got this closed up somehow at the same time that I did this. There's something that seems to be a continuous issue on just about every Kitty Hawk kit I've worked on, is that each assembly is extremely dependent on the perfect fit of the previous assemblies. So like you can see here, the gap I've got, that was trying to get this to line up and sit flush, which it's not even fully flush. All right, and I had to attach this with CA and use some zapper to get it to dry quickly. So, you know, I'm going to have to clean this up and get it to look as good as I can. Try to cover up my mess here. This here, like I said, I clipped a lot of material from the inside here. Those arms that reach into the fan faces on the front of the engines, they're not in here, not on either side, because it didn't even fit well. So that's probably me, but the rest of this, I've been taking great pains to keep these engines lined up properly, to put everything in using, you know, references on the inside of the upper fuselage, and yet I still have gaps. I have gaps and misalignments, no end of problems here. So if you're going to build this, it's a nice looking kit. And I'm sure once I clean up all my issues here, and this is all dry, I'm sure I'll be happy with it, and I'll kind of forget all the agony I had. Alright, I apologize for the background noise. Mrs. G is working out right now, and I'm going to forget to mention this later on. But you have here, you have 3 steps here. There's one there, there's one there, and there's one there. They're all called out in step 48 when you're assembling the side details on each side, along with this photo etch. I highly recommend, file this under if I knew then what I know now. Install these steps before you put the 2 fuselage halves together, because unless you want to show these steps like pushed in, like somebody's actually stepping on them, the only way you're going to get them closed up flush is if you have access to the back of it, which I unfortunately don't now. So I've done my best. I don't want to lose this piece falling inside where I'll never get it back out. So I kind of had to take what I got here. Same up here. And I'm not happy about that. I think these open steps are unnecessary. This could have been molded into the side of the helicopter. So take it for what it is. If you're watching this before you build, do these 3 steps before you put everything together, all right? And back to the build. All right, we're getting close to the end of this episode. I'm trying to assemble the rotor head, and I'm doing it the way I think 90% of you guys will be doing it, which is with folded main rotor blades. If you go back to episode 1 of this build review, I had included a link to the correct directions for the folded rotor head. So I've secured the parts following the instructions for SH-60F, step 57. The key here is that these 2 parts, HD34 and HD33, you have to cut the ends off and swap them out in order for the parts to fit correctly onto 21 and 28 respectively, because they were molded backwards. So what I did is, there's a little nub on the top half of the inside, like a little roundish, half round that fits into the half round part on there. So I cut this right across directly below that half round. You can kind of see where I'm coming from there, right underneath it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to install these halves onto the correct 21 and 28. And then I'll put the back halves back on, because they're obviously going to stick with the original. All right, so let's do that. I've got a good part of the rotor head assembled, and I wanted to stop and just explain what I've been able to decipher out of this. And hopefully you guys will at least do this much, if not correct it completely. Now they let you know that, as I mentioned previously, you have to correct the blade holders because they're molded backwards on HD33 and HD34. So I said I was going to cut them off, and I did. So after I cut the blade holders off, the 2 that needed to be swapped out, then the next thing that I discovered was that this part here, this arm, and this part here on one of them is also going to be backwards, and there's no easy way to fix that. So what I did is I took the spare rotor head, that's part C17. I cut off this section here, this arm and this part. I glued them on here. I used some Tamiya gray putty. I got that in. I let it dry overnight. I took a sanding stick and I sanded it down, and I'm satisfied with that. This is the one that's just, this one you only had to swap the blade holder out, this top part. This is the one where you not only swap that out, but then you needed the part from C17. If you do that, then I think so far it looks right to me. Once you've got this much done using the addendum to the instructions, then you can go back to the instructions for the rest of the rotor head. You know, with the exception of the blades are going to go on folded, which I haven't gotten to that part yet. When I do, I will share with the class what I learned. So let's move on. So I think we've got as much work done as we are going to get done. It's ready for primer and paint. The fuselage is completely built up. I've attached everything that I think will make it through the prime and paint process. I've left off a lot of fiddly bits, like there's 2 pitot tubes for the nose. I've left those off. There's side view mirrors that go on either pilot and co-pilot doors. I've left those off because they're definitely not going to make it through primer and paint. And then I've also left off the door gun. So aside from that, we're good to go. I haven't built up the main rotor yet. The problem with that is I'm building it with the blades folded. To do that, I can't attach the rotor blades to the rotor head until I can install 2 brackets that support the folded blades alongside the, you know, they're connected to the tail. So I can't install those till after the helicopter's painted. Once I get those installed, then I can install the rotor blades onto the rotor head and get everything lined up and glued in place. Then I can take the rotor head back off with the blades attached, paint it, detail it, and install it and be done. So that'll be coming up after I paint the helicopter. So it's just going to have to wait for now. Let's talk about the build to this point. Just like every other Kitty Hawk kit we've done on this channel, you really got to kind of do your research and pick your battles. The problem is the instructions are giving you this kind of, it's not quite a SH-60B, it's not quite an SH-60F if you build it according to the instructions. One of the big things you have to change is in step 7 they have you build a pneumatic sonobuoy launcher that mounts in the cabin behind the sonar operator seat. That's a B specific item. The F features 6 gravity-fed sonobuoy launchers that's mounted in the floor of the cabin. So what you're going to have to do is skip step 7. The kit gives you the proper parts to do the floor-mounted one. It's parts HG3 is the inside part, and HG2 is the external part that you'll see on the outside. The HG2 is called out in the instructions in its proper place, but there's no mention made of the one HG3 on the inside. So what you're going to have to do is, when you're building up the cabin, if hopefully you haven't passed this point already, if you're building up the cabin, take the cabin floor, hold it up to, you know, 1/2 of the fuselage so you can locate the 2 correct holes to drill out from inside to install HG3 inside the cabin at the right time. Leave out the sonobuoy launcher in step 7 for an F model. Along that note, all the parts for the B are included in the F kit. So if you get the right decals, if you want to do a B instead, you've got the sonar dome that mounts underneath the fuselage is there. The aforementioned sonobuoy launcher is there. There's a lot of parts that are B specific. Everything's in the kit. So you can go either way. If you can't find that B kit you wanted, buy the F if you can find that one, and you can build it up that way. And thanks to Jeff, I had Jeff comment on the part 1, and that was how I learned all the stuff about the sonobuoy launcher, because otherwise I just wouldn't have had a clue. So thank you, Jeff. And just so you know, the Dusty Dogs markings are one of my 2 finalists for this kit. So stay tuned and see if we actually go that route. So yeah, along those lines, again, not to kick a dead horse, that dead horse being Kitty Hawk, but that was, again, endemic of their instructions, incorrect, partially researched stuff. So the rest of the fuselage went together well. The biggest fit problems for me were the area on the upper fuselage aft of the engines and above the exhausts. There's a series of panels that come together there, and try as I might, and being forewarned from having built the other Black Hawk kit, I still had issues with the fit even when I took my time. So plenty of putty was used and plenty of swearing was done. It just didn't line up right, and I had to do a lot of sanding and cleanup to get it to look relatively good. So be careful. Also, be careful separating the really thin parts. This is this has been a problem. If every Kitty Hawk kit, find a better way to separate the thin parts from the parts frames. The railings behind the two forward doors, parts HA7 and HA3, both of them broke when I was trying to separate them from the frames. As a matter of fact, one of them was already broken in half before I even started messing with them. So, fortunately I clipped all the parts out. I was able to reassemble it using the locating holes on the fuselage. So, just be careful. So, it still builds up into it looks good. I'm impressed with the look to this point. We'll see how it looks with primer and paint. I think it'll look even better. Because now I've got primer and paint will cover up all that putty and crap. So it looks good, and if you just come into it with eyes wide open, check the fit and clean up every part, because there are 0 tolerances given by the Kitty Hawk kit designers. So you just have to make sure every part is cleaned properly. Check the dry fit every part 2 or 3 times before you apply glue to it. And, just take your time. And I think you can come out with a relatively good, it looks good so far. I'm very happy with it in spite of the frustration. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, I hope you'll give me a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, I hope you'll consider subscribing. We're 14 subscribers short of 1,000. Thank you all very much. I appreciate the support. I appreciate you subscribing, and I appreciate your comments and feedback. So thank you once again, and I hope you'll subscribe if you're not. Aside from that, I've also got an Instagram page. This is my Instagram handle. Be sure to check it out. I usually post pictures there prior to releasing videos. Usually give you stuff that I'm working on as it goes. I've also got a Facebook page. It's Mr. G's Workbench. Take a look at it. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you think it's even worth having, because this is the second iteration of the Mr. G's Workbench Facebook page, and I'm still not thrilled with it. And I don't know what it is. It doesn't really do anything for me, and I don't think it's doing anything for anyone else. So let me know what you think, though. And once again, thanks for stopping in. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.